Good evening, I'm Renee Miles, and this is Microbiology. And we are today looking at, get my pointer to go, we are looking at pathogens, and I picked fungus versus bacteria. And the first question that came up, you said not to look at our notes too much. I'm going to get better at this, I think. You asked to patterns that were similar to each other. There's more things that are different between fungi and bacteria. There are some similarities, but the particular traits that you wanted us to identify between fungi and bacteria, can you see that very well? I don't know how to fit in there. The fungi adapt in several ways. They can secrete exoenzymes. Which makes them great decomposers. They have thick walls. They have thick walls to protect themselves, and they can withstand a high temperature. Oops, I need to be on the fungi. They can withstand high temperature and radioactivity. The bacteria, on the other hand, they've evolved a little bit different, but not that much different. They have like hair-like projections on their surfaces that help them adhere. They also produce enzymes that break down the host tissues, kind of like the fungi that decompose. The fact that the bacteria can release the enzymes, it allows them to break through the host tissues, and it allows them to penetrate the barriers, the mucous membranes, the cell walls. In fact, some bacteria even produce proteases, and it can degrade the host tissue and facilitate the invasion, essentially. I think that we wanted to look at there's a fungus exoenzyme, as well as one of the bacteria pili. One of those is how they defend, and the other is how they adhere. So there's two different things that we're looking at there. There's a lot of damage the fungus can do, the fungi. There's a couple examples. Adhesions, Aprocera, if I said that right. They're damaging. Basically, the fungus are destroying as they're going along. And the bacteria invasion, oops, I skipped again. Biofilms are something that I found that they had in common. There is a picture here of a bacterial invasion and its biofilm. So if we flip back and forth, they look very different, but they both use those as a defense tactic and to promote their well-being and destroy the others. At the end of the day, bacteria, they take over your cells. They come in, and sometimes they just release toxins and make you not feel well, but sometimes they just take over, and they diminish the ability of your other cells to function, because they've arrived. Fungus does the same thing, on almost like exterior versus interior. They're both destroyers, and they take over. We looked at, a minute ago, a Aprocera. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but this is a structure that the fungus produce. In another way that it enables them to penetrate host tissues. And this can happen with a single fungus spore landing. I feel like I'm way too close to the screen. It's weird. The fungus can withstand high temperatures, and they're survivors, and they produce, on top of that, they produce toxins that hurt everything around them. These have all been adapted, and they're getting bigger and stronger as they go along in history. Bacteria have evolved adaptations that enable them to those pili we had a picture of a little bit earlier. That's an adaptation. Bacteria can also produce enzymes. We talked about that a little bit. Hyaluronidase is it degrades the host tissue, and it allows everything else in the process. Let's see, what else were we looking at here? We talked about the defense tactics, the biofilms, the fungus gains an additional advantage because they essentially protect the organism that they take over, and it allows them to kind of control that organism, because then they begin to suppress their defense mechanisms and just take over the host. Bacteria, they do something called capsule formation. They become resistant to antibiotics, and they kind of grow stronger as they go, and we end up with this, and we end up with this. I hope this is what you meant by presentation. I'll get better at this.